Do we think that Paolo Banchero is the clear-cut option to build your franchise around under 25, like Paul George suggested? Honestly, in my opinion, I feel like the answer is kind of yes. Like, Paolo Banchero, since he walked into the league, he was good already. He was literally good when he came into the league. And he's only gotten better, and the Magic clearly took a big step forward last year. Now, granted, they do have like Franz Wagner, and they are starting to build, they're building a roster. Like they just got KCP. They're making sure there's enough talent around Paolo. So, yes, some of their success has to do with Paolo's, ascension, but some of it also has to do with the fact that they're building, a good roster around him. Now, I think, okay, so if you go back to that draft, I don't know if I made a video on it, but I was talking about it at least, in my mind when the draft was going on. If you remember, Jabari Smith Jr. was a lot of people's #1 overall pick. A lot of people thought he was going #1, and I kept saying, I think Paolo's going 1. Like, to me, it just felt like Paolo was the #1 choice. Like, it was, I don't know, I just felt like he was going to go #1, despite the fact that everybody thought that Jabari Smith Jr. was going to go #1. And so a lot of people were shocked when Paolo went 1, but I was like, I wasn't shocked because that was my #1 choice as well. So I felt like the Magic made the right decision in the moment, even if some people were confused, and clearly it's paying off so far, right? So, under 25, again, no Wemby, no Luka, no Anthony Edwards. I think Paolo is honestly, like, I have to think about all the players who are under 25, so I'm sure there are some other options, but I definitely think Paolo is one of the best options. Now, one of the things he said in the video, or in, during his podcast, was that, because they asked him, like, how do you build a team around Paolo? Like, who do you put around him? And he said shooters. And I definitely agree with that because Paolo's game, we know he's not a really good three-point shooter. That's not his thing. But he's like 6'10", physical, like can get downhill. He's athletic. And, so his game is not an outside game. So it makes sense as to why they picked up KCP, who is one of the best 3-and-D guys in the entire league and a champion and someone who literally makes every team better that he has been on. Look at the Lakers. They got him. They won a championship. Look at Denver. They got him. They won a championship. And he left Denver. Huge, huge loss for Denver. Like, that's a really big loss. However, the Magic championship 2025, I don't think they're going to win one next year just yet. I don't think they're ready. But KCP was like one of the biggest pickups this offseason. Like, he may not be the biggest name for, like, someone who was picked up in the free agency. Like, I'm sure by technicality, Paul George was the biggest free agent signing. And to be fair, it's Paul George, right? But the KCP pickup was one of the biggest pickups this offseason because of the impact he's going to have, the value he brings, and he's honestly what the Magic needed. They literally needed a shooter because I don't know where they ended up ranking last season in terms of three-point shooting, but they were close to the bottom. Like, they were not a very good three-point shooting team. I don't know if they even took a ton of threes, but they definitely didn't make a ton of threes. And so you definitely needed someone like KCP. So that was a great pickup for them. I was thinking when I was like, thinking about what the Magic needed, I think I thought of KCP, but I don't know that he was like my #1 pick. Like, not because of what he does, but just because I think I was just thinking more like shooter. And so I think I remember saying like Gary Trent Jr. That's what I think I was talking about. So they didn't get Gary Trent Jr., but KCP, just as good. So with that in mind, back to Paolo. Is Paolo Banchero the guy we want to build our franchise around under 25? Back to the question. Again, I think the answer is yes, because I think Paolo has shown that he can be a franchise guy. Like, not just a good player, not just a star, but someone who can potentially lead your franchise to a championship. Like, he just has that it factor. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's still early, he's still young, and so it's hard to always, determine it 100%. But it's kind of like when people saw Anthony Edwards, they were like, oh, it's different. Like, maybe there are some guys in the league when he came in his rookie season who were, and I'm not saying for sure because, like, this is really hard to determine, but maybe there was a couple of guys who were technically more skilled than Anthony Edwards. Maybe. I'm not saying they were, I'm just saying maybe. So, while maybe that may have been the case, Anthony Edwards, when he played, though, you saw the impact. You saw just everything that came with it. Part of it was the it factor, and that's not something you can just replicate. So, Paolo Banchero, while he may not be flashy the way Anthony Edwards is with his dunks and all those things, they're a different style of play. Although Paolo Banchero dunks on people too. But while Paolo Banchero may not be super flashy in that regard, he has shown that he can be the number one option. Now, like we spoke about a little bit earlier, Paolo Banchero obviously is not a great three-point shooter. And while he doesn't have to be Steph Curry from three, nobody's going to ever be that. But I do think he needs to, and I'm sure he is, developing his outside game more, because there will come a point where teams will force him outside. The more he gets more recognition and the better he gets and the more prominent he becomes in the league, there will be like teams and strategies to force him outside. And he's going to have to figure out how to, either get out of that and be able to get back in the paint, or to be able to knock down threes in those moments, because there will be those moments. So I would say that is where he needs to, and I'm sure he is, making his biggest improvements. Because you don't want to get stuck on the three-point line and they force you to take threes and you take them and you're not making them, and now it's just your confidence is going a little crazy, and the rest of the team is just trying to scheme around you, and then it gets, so I think that's the biggest place where Paolo needs to, work on his game. And like I said, I'm sure he's doing that. But obviously, inside the paint, he can get to his spot. Now, is he as forceful as someone like a Zion? Zion is in his own category. Like, Zion, you cannot stop him at all. It literally doesn't matter who is on the floor. It doesn't matter at all. Zion can literally bully anybody in the paint. So I think Paolo Banchero has some of those qualities in the paint as well. I would just say Zion's ability to do that is like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's at like 100, because he just has a unique skill set like that. But I do think Paolo has that in him at times, and I think he should tap into that more as well, because people don't back you down in the paint as much anymore. Like, that's not necessarily the style of play that people play, in the NBA right now. So, with that in mind, if Paolo can capitalize on that and back people down in the paint and just, make it difficult on people to have to guard him in the paint. Now, again, he's not Shaq. I'm not trying to say he's Shaq, but if he can just incorporate backing people down in the paint so they have to figure out how to defend that even more so. Like I said, he already does that. I think that he could get some, foul trouble on the other teams. We'll say that. So I definitely do agree with Paul George that Paolo Banchero is a great choice to be a person you build your franchise around under 25. Again, I'd have to think of who else is under 25. I know he mentioned Ja Morant, and we obviously know Ja Morant is a great choice. I just have to think of who else would be in that category. So, but I do agree. Paolo Banchero is already sort of a problem, and he's going to continue to be a problem as long as he continues to work on his game. And the Magic, they're looking nice. They have a lot of young talent. They're building in the right direction. They have a good coach. Everything is looking good.